I had a client this morning that asked me about something I'm really passionate about, and it's mobilizing men. It's one of the things that I'm really interested in seeing an impact in, husbands, fathers, owners of businesses, but specifically men. That's who I interact with the most. I don't have as much that I can offer to ladies. But he asked me, how do you mobilize men? And specifically, we were talking about in the context of affecting change. So another thing I'm passionate about is affecting change in San Antonio, the greater San Antonio area, for generations. And so if we're going to do that, we're going to do that by mobilizing men. But this fundamental question of how do you mobilize people? And I wanted to kind of talk just briefly about that, is getting someone to get to a grasp of what they're passionate about and how they're gifted. And the linchpin here is the gospel. So there's these three elements that are interworking. So if you're passionate about something, it's something that God's given you to do and excited about, and you have these gifts and how you can utilize those gifts, and you're already hardwired to utilize those gifts because that's just who you are. But then you put the gospel at the center of that. It changes the way that you interact with people, and it changes the way to where the gospel teaches us to be humble, to be able to be honest about our own failures and weaknesses, and that God is good, and that He loves, and that He cares, and that He restores. And so when you take that, so for example, let me get real with you. A man who's passionate about the drug abuse epidemic in rural Texas, rural California, rural Georgia, wherever he might be passionate about the drug abuse issue and what's going on there. And if that person has some gifts, let's say he's a very good speaker or has a good understanding of knowledge, and he has an opportunity to that, and you mix that with the gospel, now that man who can speak well and is passionate about drugs, the drug abuse issue, can now come to a situation where he says, you know what, I'm broken. I have needs. I have despair and regrets and pains and fears, but God cares for me. And he brings us to a place, and He even uses drug abuse or the challenges that you face that are different than the challenges that I face to bring us to a place where we could cry out to God and that He could restore us and give us hope. And so you, as someone who struggles with drug abuse, there's hope for you. And so the gospel intersects with the gifts of speaking and the passion of drug abuse, affecting the drug abuse issue, and then makes that living by giving hope in a living God who is powerful and active and who cares for people. And so mobilizing men happens by connecting that man with his passions and his gifts and the gospel. Thank you. I hope that's helpful.